Alright, welcome back everyone. Welcome back to a new Black Desert mobile video, and today we have something for you in treat. Okay, so this will be a very special and practical guide on how to form your PvP combos. Right, so this is regardless of what class you're using, right? So I am aware that there are current existing PvP guides by other YouTubers, even from few years ago or recently. Okay, but this is just my own take and my focus on forming your PvP combos. Right, so it's somewhat more practical, I would say, and this is also something I have mentioned previously as well in one of our previous live streams. Right, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. Right, so before we even get to forming a PvP combo, right, the combo flow, right, which essentially means what skills you should use after one another, right, you need to know the basics of getting your opponent into a CC, right, which stands for crowd control, right? CC is short for crowd control state. Right, you need to get your opponent into a CC state so that you can continue using skills and not get attack back. Yeah. So there are a few states. Okay, let's start from the lower tier CC. Okay, which is stun. All right. So stun, I'll put it as tier C. All right, tier C. Okay, so let's take a look at that animation again. All right, so look at this NPC. All right, so that is usually what stuns when your opponent is stunned looks like. So if you're in the arena and you do a skill that does a stun, it says stun on either first hit or last hit. It says it here, STUN. Right, this is what your opponent would look like if he or she were in a stun state. Right, so that is the lowest tier CC state, which is tier C. I'll put at tier C. Right. Okay, next moving on to a tier B CC state. That will be Daze. Right, so notice that this NPC is now in I'll say concuss animation. You can see if your opponent looks like he or she is doing that, right? That means he or she is in a Daze, as my mouse cursor is moving, a Daze state, right? So this is of a higher tier CC level, so I'll put Daze at tier B, right, as compared to stun, which is just tier C. Okay, so why is this important to have different tiers of CC? And that is because, okay, if you stun a stun skill, right, you cannot use another stun skill like this, for example, after the first stun skill to follow it out, because by then your opponent would have recovered from it. Yeah, so it doesn't add to the stun duration, right? In order to keep your opponent locked, right, in a CC state, you have to use a higher tier CC skill. So in this case, that will be Daze. That will be tier C. Right, I'll put it at tier C, which is above tier B for stun. Right, so remember the flow, right? Stun and then Daze. All right, remember that and keep that in mind while we move on to tier A, the tier A CC state, which is Knockback. Right, so look at what the NPC is doing here. Right, you can see that the NPC is stepping back a few, maybe 3 to 4 steps, right? And he's doing this stepping back animation. Okay, so that indicates that your opponent is in a knockback state, right? So knockback, I would put it at tier A, right? So knockback is a higher tier CC state as compared to stun or Daze. Right, so same thing applies here. Right, if you use a Daze skill, right, you cannot use another Daze skill over here to extend the Daze duration. Right, that doesn't work. right? After your first Daze skill lands, you need to use a Knockback skill to continue keeping your opponent CC, right? Okay, so that's tier A CC for Knockback. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, first we have stun, and then Daze, right? And then Knockback. All right, keep those in mind. And next we have bound, and I'll say bound or knockdown or knock up, right? So these three, okay, once again, bound, okay, knock down, and knock up, right? So this class does not have a skill that does knock up, okay, but bound, knock down, and knock up are the, I'll say, tier S, right? Tier S CC state that is even higher as compared to, say, for example, knockback. All right. So same thing applies here. Once you have landed a knockback skill, right? Usually, you cannot use another knockback skill to extend the knockback duration. You have to follow it up with either a skill that downs bound, or knock down, or knock up, right? Okay, usually your skill will have that description, right? You either say bound, knock up, and knock down, right? So even though bound, knock up, and knock down are the same tiers of CC, tier S, okay, but they are slightly different. Okay, so for example, bound, okay, notice that your opponent is straight away pinned to the ground, right? But for knock down, okay, there's a slight animation where your opponent is pushed backwards, right? It's like a slight jump backwards kind of animation, right? So that additional jump, right, will give you additional time to, right, which means that your opponent will be on the ground for slightly longer if you use, say, for example, knockdown as compared to bound, right? Okay, and you might have guessed it, knock up is the best, right? Because this small animation for knock up is even more, right? Slightly more, yeah. So if you have a skill that does knock up, right, use it. Try to use it immediately after knockback if you can, yeah, if you can. I know not all classes have a knock up skill. All right. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing, and okay, let's move on to the most important part of this video, and that is forming your combos. Okay, so this is especially important for classes that depend on combo or doing a combo, right? Okay, so those are the 4 different types of CC tier. Okay, but there exists one more tier of CC, okay, and that is grab, right? So what grab does is it allows you to manhandle, right, or woman handle, depending on what gender your class is, right? Your opponent, even if he or she is already on the ground, yeah. So usually, if you are using a class that has a grabbing skill, for example, now we are using our gladiator to showcase the skills, right? You can use grab to, as long as your opponent is not in an anti-grabbable state, you can grab him or her, right? Even if they are on the ground already, yeah. Right. So for grabber classes, okay, what they usually do is they use grab to extend the combo to land more skills, right? To do more damage. All right. Okay, we'll see how that comes into play once we form the combo. All right. So let's move on to the most important part of this video, which is forming your combo. Okay, so this usually applies to most classes. Okay, with an engagement skill that does stun. All right, I say most because not all classes play the same way. All right. So for example, if you do not know the class that you are trying out for PvP, and you do not know the names of the skills, right? Since, for example, this is your first time looking at the skills, okay, what you can do is following the CC tiers, right? Starting from the lowest tier, remember we started from stun, right? So what should we do as the first skill to use? A stun skill, right? Ideally, a skill that is protected, right? So it's safer for you, right? So that you don't get CC'd by your opponent instead, right? So the first skill that you should always use to engage or start a combo, try to find a skill that is protected in the arena. For example, here it says grants super armor instead of forward guard. Okay, I mean I can turn it off for forward guard instead of super armor. So this means that this skill is protected in the arena. Alright, grants forward guard while using a skill. Okay, we'll take a look at another class engagement skill after this. Okay, so this is the first skill that does stun, right? Maybe we can also change it to charging thrust. Yeah, same thing. Okay, does stun. Okay, super armor, same thing, is protected, it does stun, right? So regardless of what class you're using, try to find the first skill that does stun and is protected. All right, the first step is very important to forming your combo. All right. Okay, but we're gonna use go with shield charge over here. Okay, so remember the second lowest tier of CC, which is Daze. Okay, that's also freeze. Okay, which is also same tier as Daze, but this class does not have a freezing skill. So we go with Daze. Okay, so find a skill that does Daze. Right, I mean it doesn't have to be protected, but if you can find a skill for your class that does Daze and is protected, I mean good for you. If not, right, just find a skill that does Daze and has good damage and is usually recommended for PvP. Right, so over here we have Deep Trust, right? So shield charge, stun, Deep Trust, Daze, right? Remember the flow, right? The flow from tier C to tier B, stun to Daze, right? So this is what we'll do, starting from the bottom left, start with stun, and then the second skill will be second skill will be directly above it. All right. Okay, moving on. Remember the tier A CC state, Knockback. All right. So even if you don't know the skills of the class you are using, just go through all the skills. Find a skill that does Knockback. All right. And in this case, that will be Spinning Slash. All right. And then moving on, remember the flow. First we have stun, Daze, all right, Knockback, and if you can find Knockup, right, tier S. If not, find Knockdown, right, or Bound. Yeah, I'll go for Knockdown if you do not have a Knockup skill, all right. Yeah, so the flow, right. So this is how you would set up the first few skills of your combo flow, right? So stun, Daze, Knockback, right? So the Knockback animation and Knockdown, right? So depending on the class that you're using, right? If you have a grabbing skill, it is possible for you to follow it up with a grab. Okay, so I'll put a grab skill over here. Okay, but before that, since your opponent is now on the ground because of your knockdown skill, usually you have time to do 1 or 2 additional damage skills, right? So this is when I would recommend you to use a skill that does life stealing. Yeah. So for example, life stealing meaning you can gain back health by using the skill on your opponent. Okay, of course that depends on your class. Alright. Okay, so usually that will be the flow. Of course you can put other skills okay, depending on your class. Alright. For different situations. Okay, but for Gladiator this is what I would use. Right, so you can see the flow, you can kind of see the flow and how this combo was formed. Right? So once again, let me repeat the flow. Right, stun, Daze, okay, Knockback, and Knockdown. Okay, and usually after that you can do some damage skills. For example, in this case for Gladiator we can use Ground Smash, and then after that we can do some grabbing. Yeah. Alright. Okay, and then after that we can do some more damage skills before running or moving away from danger. Alright, so that's one way of forming your combo. Okay, now this is just for this is just using Gladiator to demonstrate how to form your combo, right? So you might ask, right, how does that even apply to other classes, right? So let me demonstrate using my Grandmaster. Let's go. Alright, so we have our Grandmaster now with us. Okay, let's take a look at his skills. So assuming, right, let's just assume that we do not have any experience with playing as the Grandmaster. Okay, so now the skill wheel is all empty. Okay, so once again, remember the flow, right? Start with stun, and then follow up with Daze, and then follow up with Knockback, and then bound, Knockdown or knock up, and then maybe a grab if your class has grab. Alright. Okay, so this is a different class, right? Totally different. This is Grandmaster. Okay, just now that was Gladiator. Okay, this is a totally different class. Okay, now watch how we apply the same flow to form a combo. Alright. So first up, let's find a skill that does stun and is protected in the arena. Right, so let's see. Full force, no. It starts with a Daze. That's not how you start the combo. Right, how about this? Knee hammer. Okay, it says super armor, so that's protected in the arena. It does stun. Okay, so this is a very good skill to engage and start your combo. Alright, so we use knee hammer first. Okay, next. Remember, after stun, we have Daze. Alright. Okay, so Daze. Let's find a skill that does Daze. Okay, so this does Daze. Okay. Okay, but the damage is kind of sucky. Let's take a look at the next skill. Okay, so this does Daze and it's protected as well. Okay, so that's for sure much better. Alright. So once again, remember we are doing the same flow. Yeah. I mean the skills are totally different, but it's the same flow. Yeah. Right, so stun and Daze. Alright. Okay, so the special thing about this skill, Shoulder Thrust, is that if you tap it once, it does Daze. Okay, but if you tap and hold on, if you tap and hold on to it, alright. Okay, the animation isn't showing correctly, but it should do a knock back, right? When you do a second tap on the same skill, right? So that sometimes there are skills that allows you to double tap on it or hold on to it, alright? We'll show this in the arena after we have formed the combo for our Grandmaster, right? Since it's not showing the animation here correctly, alright? Okay, so after this knockback over here, once again, remember the same flow, right? After knockback, it's knock down or knock up, right? So let's see, we have knockdown here for Gale Force, right? That's knockdown. Okay. We have Hell Sweep here, which does knock up. So in this case, would you use Gale Force after your Shoulder Thrust, or would you use Hell Sweep? Okay, and of course the answer is Hell Sweep, right? Because knock up allows you to have more time. Okay, because your opponent will be on the ground slightly longer because of this animation of your opponent getting knocked up into the air and then falling onto the ground, right? So use Hell Sweep before Gale Force, if you can, yeah. Okay, and usually after that you should have time to do some additional skills before your grab, right? So Grandmaster is another class with grab, alright? Okay, let's see. Okay, we cannot use other skills here as well. Let's put, say, the level 70 buff here. Okay, so this is the same flow. Okay, once you have the basic flow, okay, for your class, okay, you can slot in other skills, okay, for the empty skill slot, right? Usually you use things like you use often or different skills for different situation, right? So for Grandmaster, some players might use spiral cannon, but I will not because it's not protected in the arena. Yeah, so I don't find it safe. Yeah. Alright. Okay, so for example, so that is an example of how you can use the flow from the tier C CC to the tier S CC. Right? From stun all the way to knockdown or knockup or bound. Yeah. So without further ado, let's see how that plays out in the arena. Right? I'll try to comment while showing you the combo live as well. Alright, let's try and find 1 or 2 matches to demonstrate how the flow works in the arena. Alright. Alright, looks like we have a Drake player, one of the newer classes. Okay, we're gonna start things off with our level 70 buff. Alright, so not sure if you noticed the flow. Oops. Okay, that's our fault. Alright, stun, Daze, Knockback, and Knockout. Alright. Alright, so that was a very fast version of the flow. Not sure if you caught that. Alright, looks like we are up against Fletcher. Let's see how this goes. Right, remember the flow. Okay, first up we're gonna use our level 70 buff and then stun. Okay, we'll try to land a stun first, right? Okay, stun. It's fine. Sometimes you don't always land your skills. Okay, let's try a stun. Okay, let's see how this goes. Alright, stun, Daze, knockback, knockout. Okay, so that was the combo flow. So once again, stun. Okay, Daze, knockback, knockout. And do some damage skill and grab. And GG, well played. Right, so as Grandmaster is a rather fast class. Okay, that might be fast if you are looking at this combo flow building thing for the first time. So let's slow it down. Okay, we are going to replay that in a slow motion so that you can see what happened over there. Okay, once again, remember there's always stun, Daze, knockback, and then either bound or knock up or knock down. Right, ideally if you have a knock up skill, use that. Alright. Alright, so hopefully this short practical PvP guide was helpful and entertaining as well in helping you learn how to build your own PvP combo, right? Starting from the lowest tier, CC, which is stun, all the way to knockdown or knock up or bound, right? And if you are a grabber class, you can use grab after that to extend your combo, right? So, and as always, stay awesome and stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you on the next Black Desert mobile video. Cheers, man.